Thank you so much, Sonal, for joining us for this
Thank
10th
you.
session of CraftxClimate session, which is a knowledge series held and developed by Creative Dignity, an ecosystem enabler in the craft sector. As you very well know, you are a CD member. And, so with this session, we are starting something called CD Member Spotlight, where we talk about the work and its alignment with climate transitions in the craft sector. So we'll invite some of the CD members in the consecutive months and year, hopefully, to share their business model and how climate positivity is an ethos that they work with. And I am Surucchi Khubchandani, the curator of this series. And today's session is a little provocative in its title. It says, how sustainable is your underwear? And now, what does that really mean? And Sonal, we've been talking for, I think, 10 months now, on and off. And Sonal is the founder of Maayu, which is an organic and non-toxic plantable intimate wear brand, right, Sonal?
That's
And
true.
she's also the founder of Sustainable Earth Foundation, which focuses on eco-friendly manufacturing. So, and with the long, experience that you have in this sector, Sonal, you've also told me that you've pioneered herbal dyeing techniques and supported organic farming through the means of hand spinning, hand weaving, and you've empowered 2,000 artisans through this mechanism, and which is a great gamut of work, and we'll get to know more of it today. And I remember very distinctly, Sonal, when we started talking that, you took me through your background, which is in the mainstream textile sector, and your own exposure with chemicals at various points of production that kind of worried you, made you anxious in terms of the chemical abundant environment that we all are surrounded with, not only the producers, but also the consumers like myself in the way of consumption. Now, this could be deodorants, clothing, and underwear, which we'll talk about today. So any iota of chemical that surrounds us also impacts our well-being. And very interestingly, you also gave us some inputs on the high frequency vibrations that textiles embody and bring with themselves. So cotton being a high energy frequency material, so natural materials being such like silk, cotton, hemp, linen, and more, and the synthetics like polyester, nylon, being short vibration materials, which of course, are not that great for our well-being. So, and very interestingly, when I went through your website, Maayu's website, that is, there are two things that really stood out for me. One was cotton, and the other was the color white. So cotton for if we try to understand and dissect it, now cotton being the material and color embodying the dyes, the dye gives it the color that, one wears. So today I just want to tell all the audience that has joined us that it's going to be a little multi-nuanced discussion. We are going to talk about clothing, health, environment, and very interestingly, how crafts can play a positive role. Yes, crafts, because I'm representing Creative Dignity, which is a craft ecosystem enabler. So craft shouldn't go amiss. And so
Craft is a
let's
very
start.
important part of craft is a very important part of Maayu. So I will explain to you how
Yeah,
and why.
great. So looking forward, and let's start with understanding why Maayu, Sonal. What was the need?
So I have been, like you mentioned, that I've been working with natural dyes. It actually began with my search for environmental impact that the chemicals were making. Yeah, back in the day in '99, we had no clue about sustainability, about how textiles are impacting. But I happened to move to Ahmedabad and I saw it happening firsthand. It's very common knowledge now, but back in the day, nobody knew about it. And I just saw it in the environment. So that inspired me to start. I'm not a textile background person, but just the fact that I could not fathom the fact that we had to buy bottled water when water is so abundant and which was being destroyed. Yeah, these were the two things that I just couldn't link with each other. And the more I delved into it, the more I found out that how the textile, the fashion industry, what are the ingredients that they're putting? They're like sulfuric acid is being put to dye and color the textiles, and which made complete no sense. So when I got to know about traditional wisdom, I started with natural dyes, and my focus was entirely and completely environmental. I had no clue about anything else. I was just seeing what was happening in front of me, and it was my discovery process. Basically, I wanted to learn about it, and it just went to the fact that it turned into a big company, and we standardized the natural dyes and all of that. Along the way, while I was researching on that, I also was trying to figure out what chemicals are actually doing to us, right? I was trying to understand why are they so bad, right? So I would visit the factories that were actually producing these dyes or was printing with chemicals or were the entire process, the entire chain, the supply chain, which was existing at that point. And I felt extremely, extremely violent in that space. You know, the smells I couldn't stand, the sounds I couldn't stand. I just couldn't be in that environment, even for a few minutes. And so I would wonder, how are people working in this environment? If it's so harmful, the water is getting harmed so much, and I can't stand over there. I can't just smell. I couldn't even go to a shop to source materials because the smell was so suffocating for me. So either I was too sensitive, or it was just as in people were not realizing. I didn't know what that was. But then when I got to know traditionally that we had this wisdom, that's when I started to study the ancient wisdom as well as what was going on at the same time. Along the way, I realized so it was impacting the health also of the workers. So from environment, my focus went on to the workers' health. Within a few years, my daughter came into her puberty zone, and in my research, I had read about that how dyes are carcinogenic, how they are hormonal disbalance, this that, but didn't really pay much attention to it. I was only focused on environment. And when my daughter touched her puberty and a couple of years into her menstrual cycle, we realized that it was irregular. And a visit to a gynec said that she's on the onset of PCOD. That was the first time I heard this concept of PCOD. And the concern on my face made my gynec say that it's most girls who have it. That information was even more shocking for me, because if it's one child, if it's one girl, then it's a problem that we deal with one child. It's a genetic or a problem in her body, which we need to deal with. But when you talk about most girls having it, then it's a societal problem, right? And that really kind of put me back, and I started studying about PCOD, PCOS, and I realized that it is a hormonal imbalance issue. And then suddenly the dyes and the synthetic material and hormonal imbalance, and because I'd been working with all of that information kind of flooded back into me. I said, oh my God, it's impacting the human body a lot. It's reached to this level. So I started studying I started understanding and because it's a reproductive area, my logic went to, okay, how is it impacting our reproductive system? And that's how I logically went to understand the innerwear, right? So I asked my mom and my grandmother was alive at that point. So I started studying their patterns, how it was, had they ever heard of PCOD, PCOS? Maybe I had missed it, maybe it was, I'd not paid so much attention to it until it hit home. But they'd never heard of it. They didn't know about it. Reproductive issues were not a problem in my grandmother's generation. She died very healthy. She was very healthy. I'd never heard of any uterus issues or ovarian issues or cervical cancer or any of that. It was very rare in her generation. With my mom's generation, a little bit had started entering. And in my generation, we started hearing about these things. We started hearing about pap smear, that we should get a pap smear done, and all of that. And I also was noticing the rise and the change in these, so you barely heard about cancers in that generation, the grandparents' generation. In my daughter's generation, every single person knows somebody who has cancer, right? So I was seeing that there was a huge link between these, and these were carcinogenic chemicals that we were talking about. So I realized that has something to do with our innerwear. And the more I thought about it, the more goosebumps, I still get goosebumps thinking about it, that we are wearing it in an area which is directly impacting our internal body, right? It's enclosed, it's tight, it's fitted. So it's supposed to be breathing from there. And our internal body system, that's the only place that really has an internal body exposure, but it's covered. Yeah. Our nose and mouth is still open, but and it's direct. It's our digestive system, it's our urinary tract system, and our uterus, right? And all our hormonal and ovaries. Ovaries is where our hormones are also regulated from. Yeah. So the more I thought about it, the more it kind of concerned me, and I saw that my mother's generation started wearing underwear once in a while, and barely used sanitary napkin. In my generation, I have always used sanitary napkins, and I grew up wearing underwear. And maybe it was the impact of the synthetic material in the sanitary napkin was impacted on me in my body, my uterus, and that got transferred to my child while she was in my uterus. It could be because we always hear in India, we always hear that you keep yourself healthy. If you're healthy, your child is also going to be healthy. So if my uterus is not healthy, how do I expect my child to be healthy? And it was showing in her body now through PCOD and PCOS. And PCOD and PCOS is something which is common to everyone, most girls now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that really concerned me a lot. And that's how I said, okay, if there is one product that I need to think about, I may think about the manufacturing, I may think about transitioning the whole world, I may think about replacing all the dyes. What was the purpose of it, right? It was environmental health. But if human health is not doing well, environment health is also not doing well. It's both related.
Yeah.
So, and if there is one product that we need to change, also another thing, because I'd been in that industry, I'd worked with all fashion houses and everybody was trying to do natural dyes and make a fashion line or whatever. But I didn't see people changing their wardrobes, right? I didn't see people changing all their garments to natural dyes. I didn't see people changing all their garments to, because everybody needs some fashion wear, some wedding wear or this and that, which is not available in natural dyes. So I didn't see it being a completely practical conversion for a person, right? Or impacting their health directly. It could be one or two wardrobe clothes in their wardrobe, but it was not really impacting anybody's health, right? My entire wardrobe was naturally dyed, yeah. But my daughter's wardrobe was naturally dyed, but it's still there was some impact that was happening on her, right? There was something missing. So that's when I realized that if there is one garment that needs to be changed, if I think about just one garment, because I was also thinking minimal, I was also thinking about not making more clothes, just not creating another fashion statement or just not creating another collection just for the sake of having a collection. What is that one product that really would impact somebody, impact the user, impact the environment? What is that one product? And innerwear was that one product that I could just not lift my finger off. And I said, okay, this is that one product that if I make new, I'm not adding to the burden of the environment. Everybody needs a new innerwear. Nobody can be wearing a shared innerwear or donated innerwear. They need to have a fresh new underwear. And underwear is something that impacts our body. So that was my reason. So health, basically all my lens entirely went to health, towards health and well-being. So health and well-being of the user, extremely important. Health and well-being of the environment, extremely important. Both are completely interlinked. Humans are much more vulnerable than the environment and that the earth. If earth is hurting, humans have gone way past their hurting period. They're really ill, which we don't realize.
Try to, yeah, sure. So, let's try to understand it a little further, through your product. So, because it says organic, it says non-toxic, help me understand, what does this imply in the product category that we are talking about? And why, how can a consumer engage while they are doing lingerie shopping? How does all of this come together? The words organic, non-toxic. What is the way to understand this product through it, and how are you attaining it within your brand? What are you doing right?
Okay. I'm just trying. I don't know if I didn't know anything better. Once I learned, I kind of embodied that. What I mean, but when I say organic and non-toxic is we have to understand this a little in the fashion, from the fashion perspective, right? Now the label, organic cotton labels, where your certification labels, they also allow a certain percentage of synthetic to be added to cotton and still be certified as organic, right? So according to me, my perspective is not everything that is organic would be natural in the fashion world, and not everything that is natural could be certified as organic. As you very well know, a lot of handloom textiles we are unable to certify them as organic, right? So when we are saying organic in an innerwear, we are saying that it's 100% cotton and 100% natural, and it is free of pesticides and fertilizers, right? So we don't use any synthetic material to grow the cotton. The cotton uses the maximum amount of fertilizers. It's almost 70-80% of fertilizers go into growing cotton. When we are saying organic cotton, we are saying that it has to be natural. 100% or organic means 100% cotton, and 100% pesticide and fertilizer free is when we say that it is completely without, when it's on the growing stage, right? But after that, the cotton being the characteristic of cotton and going into clothing is that it uses a lot of chemicals along the way by the time it reaches the user, right? There are many processes that it has to go through: the washing, dyeing, dye fixing, it has to be prepared for dyeing, and all of that happens. So along the way, it is anywhere between 7,000 to 12,000 kinds of chemicals that would go into processing or by the time it comes to the user, right? And if you have anti-wrinkle or if you have perspiration free, all these are also chemicals, right? So by the time it comes to us, is anything between 8 to 12,000. Every garment, each and every garment that comes to us, whether it's a small or a big, the number of chemicals that go into it are going to be 7 to 8,000. Right? So when I'm saying non-toxic, we will not use any of those. We don't bleach. That's why our undergarments remain white, and they're not stark white. All right, they're going to be off-white because we don't use bleach on it either. Right? All we do is we wash it so that it doesn't shrink any further when it goes to the customer. Right? We wash it well, and we send it to them as it is without using any dyes. So there's no synthetic dyes on it. There's no synthetic processing that is done on it. So that's where the non-toxic part of it comes, that there are no synthetic fertilizers, no synthetic pesticides, no synthetic dyes, no bleaching, none of it.
So you are trying to say that, if one picks up an underwear, then one should go for a white underwear, and that is, again, cotton. But in that also, there is no surety that it's organic because it doesn't say so. So then one needs to be more careful of the choices that one is making.
So, see, it's always a spectrum, right? We have to make the best that is available to us, right? What is the best that you can get, and where are you making that compromise? Exactly, right? So if somebody needs to wear, as I would put as a hierarchy, what I would recommend somebody to do is wear something which is dye-free, wear something which is absolutely natural fiber, 100% organic cotton, natural fiber, and dye-free. These two are the topmost. Right now, if you really have to buy something, then the material has to be cotton, because that's where the suffocation happens when you have anything synthetic in it. Like if you have a spandex, or if you have a polyester, or if you have a nylon in it, then it's suffocating. If your body is suffocating, you are suffocating your organs. And the highest reason for somebody to get cancers is because of lack of oxygen. Right? So if oxygen doesn't reach your body parts, that's where all the illnesses started happening, right? I mean, the difference between a dead and alive person is breathing, right? So that's the first thing that we need to do. We need to breathe, right? And dyes, when we are talking about synthetic dye, I would recommend that never use that. Please avoid that. For your undergarments, it should be absolutely no, very strict no. But if you really have to, then go for God certified or very low impact ones. See, even low impact ones are synthetic. They are carcinogenic, but in smaller quantities. So for me, in my perspective, it just means that it's a smaller amount of poison.
But what about the Azophi dyes that are used?
They're also synthetic dyes.
Even that is not safe according to you?
Yeah. All of those Ecotex dyes, low impact dyes. See, it's saying low impact. It's not saying no impact. Low impact means it's just a small quantity. It's not a full glass of poison. It's a half a glass of poison. That's all it means, right? Okay. It is still harmful. It is still, see, the reason why it was, I will explain why it was also introduced. When organic cotton was first introduced, it was only sold as Cora, no dyes, no bleaching. But the fashion industry was not taking it on. So the certification bodies allowed a certain level of chemicals to be used so that the fashion industry could acknowledge and start absorbing our organic cotton, right? So the permissions were given. But that doesn't mean that they're okay. Because it's permitted, that doesn't mean it's okay, right? So I would recommend in your undergarments, please do not use anything synthetic. Don't wear undergarments if you don't have to. If you have clothes which are flowing and you can feel safe without undergarments, avoid them. If you can't, if you don't have an option. But if you have an option, please do not use anything synthetic in your undergarments. Please don't. At least for most of the times. When you're sleeping, it's a hard no. Keep it as a hard no. Try to make it a hard no. Anywhere, even for a day, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, how much ever you can. Try to let your body breathe as much as possible, is what I would recommend. If it is not possible for somebody to, you know,
no, that's a big takeaway.
Yeah.
Sonal, and maybe, let's also talk about any brand, for what I've understood, most of the brands are or small brands, let's say, are extension of the founder's personality. And in this case, you have had long engagement with Crafts. So how have you used Crafts to actually better the product, be it processes or techniques or even the community? Would you want to talk a little bit about that as well? Because very interestingly, there is this innovation that you have played with within your own product category. And maybe, because a lot of stakeholders today or audience base is from the industry. So it'll be very interesting for them to know.
So this is the most exciting part for me, okay? Why craft and how have I used it, right? So why craft is, like you earlier mentioned, that there is vibration in the textile, right? For me, craft, okay, one Banarsi sari or one a master weaver sari or a master weaver clothing is amazing. I would love to have it. But I feel that products need to be our everyday use. Crafts need to be our everyday use product, right? The other thing, more importantly, is when we were talking about vibration in textiles, right? Vibration, everything has vibration. Everything has energy, right? So when we are using synthetic materials, it's dead. It's got zero. It was tested by a scientist. When she tested energy levels of polyester and synthetic materials, is there. I can share the link with you, and you can share it with your viewers. Wherein she talks about how synthetic materials, how human body is 100 energy when they are in good health, and when they are ill health, they are like 10, 12 is the energy, and when they are dead, it's 0, right? So when she compared the textiles, polyester was 0. So it's a dead material, right?
Interesting.
Silk is also very low energy. Silk is also not coming on high, even though it's natural. It doesn't come high on energy. It comes low on energy, right? Organic cotton was 100 as the human health, yeah? And linen was even higher. Linen is even higher. But I feel what she would have tested was mill-made organic cotton. But if she would have tested hand-spun, hand-woven organic cotton, it would have been way, way, way high, right? I'm going to try. I'm trying to get the test done, but I'm 100% sure that's going to happen. It's called soulful fabric for a reason, right? If a user uses it, they will feel it themselves. It's more breathable. I have heard it so often so our boxers are handloom fabrics, right? They're hand-spun, hand-woven handloom fabrics. Our consumers, people who use it, many of them don't know what craft is or what handloom is. But when they wear it, they say it's just amazing, And I was selling it as an undergarment, but they are wearing it all over the place. They're wearing it for yoga. They're wearing it for sleep. They even walk on the beach. When they're going out on the beach, they're wearing it there. When they're lounging, they're wearing it. And they send me pictures of using it in so many different ways. I had just introduced it as an undergarment, but it's not an undergarment anymore. It's their go-to garment. So that's the comfort level that it gives them. So that's in the boxers.
Let's take a step back, Sonal, and I'm just sorry to cut you. I feel, let's take a step back and understand. So what are the products that Maayu? So because there are many products, right? So there is the women's underwear, there is men's brief, and there are boxers, right? Or am I missing?
For kids also. We have kids underwear and kids boxers.
Sure. Yeah. So just, so that our viewers are clear that what is it that we're exactly talking about. So now you're specifically talking about the boxers.
Boxers. We're talking about the boxers. So the boxers, we have a range of boxers which are handloom, hand-spun, hand-woven handloom, kala cotton handloom. We have those boxers, and we feel these are very, very healthy materials, right? I didn't introduce handloom fabric for the fashion of it, or for the
hype of it.
just for the sake of it, just to be known as handloom or anything. I truly feel that they are healthy materials. Yeah? When you're wearing it on your body, they give back. They are a very holistic material. They make you feel great, right? They're very breathable, extremely breathable, and they're very comfortable. Right? So I feel that health aspect of them on our body is great, as well as it has the lowest carbon footprint. You know how these two go together hand in hand. It's beautiful the way both of these things go hand to hand. Whatever is extremely good for the environment is going to be extremely good for the body also, you know. So that's how I integrated organic cotton handloom boxers in our product line, but also in our panties. Panties are basically made in the factories. They are organically grown cotton, but they're made in the factory. So it's a mill-made material. But I wanted to use craft in that too in some ways. Yeah.
In some ways,
So I
yeah.
was like very torn now. How am I going to do this? You know, how am I going to introduce craft on this? And then there was a problem that came in front of us because our underwear is off white, you know, and if in a house there are two adult women using our underwear, they're both there, and if they're similar size, both their underwears are going to get mixed with each other, and they will not. It'll be difficult for them to identify which is whose, right? So we introduced these crochet identifiers, which is like a crochet flower or a crochet heart or a crochet circle. So each one can choose their identifier. We call them identifiers, and they can choose whether they want to put a flower. So this was a problem that came for me and my daughter, right? We are both adults, and we are wearing similar sizes. So I said, okay, she chose, I'm going to wear hearts, and I chose, okay, I'm going to wear a flower. So all my underwear has flowers on it, and her underwear has hearts on it. So that's how we identify each other's apart, you know. So it was a problem that came to us, and craft was amazing. And the beautiful part of it also was that I moved to Goa, and I wanted to engage the local crafts. And crochet is big in Goa. There's no other craft which is really existing here, you know. It's not
Mm-hmm.
really there, but crochet is something that almost every woman around me knows. So I said, this is perfect. I can engage with the local ladies, and it solves a very big problem for us, and it's craft. How better can that get in? It was like the best thing that happened, and that's how we introduced these
Yeah. So
crafts.
so
So craft
crochet
has a
as a
lot of
differentiating
solutions.
mark. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. No, absolutely. And why don't you talk about your plant-based dyes? So you are using some kind of a design element,
Yeah.
and crafts is coming as
So
a rescue there also.
yeah. So, so the thing is that when I first introduced innerwear, it was naturally dyed. There were dyes in it, but then when I took a break for a while, couple of years, and then when I reintroduced innerwear, I wanted to avoid even more resources. I wanted to make it even more simple. So that's when I said, okay, there is going to be a collection which is going to be 100% natural and dye free and chemical free anyways it all is, but even dye free, you know, even natural dye is free. But if we are to use any dye, it has to be something which is medicinal, or it helps the body in some way, right? Of course environmental impact is always taken into account, but also the human body, right? If
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
holistic to the human body, if it has medicinal values, only then we would use any dye or color to it. Otherwise we are not using any dye or color. So we said, okay, we'll have a small collection because I have been associated with natural and medicinal rich herbal dyes for a very long time. So my heart still keeps going back there. And another reason also is that our crafts, we have beautiful textiles in natural dyes in our own crafts, like ajrak and kala cotton handloom. There are very such. Why not use those? I mean, I would love to explore more and more other crafts that we could integrate and, you know, keep it in our everyday lives, and how we can integrate that with our product line. So yeah, so craft. That's how we keep trying to find ways of integrating craft into our collection.
yeah. And hope to see more of it. Yeah. So there are three things. So there is a Kala cotton engagement, and then there is a hand block print engagement through the
Yes,
boxer range. Then,
yes.
of course, the plant-based dyes. So indigo as a design differentiator, and
And
the
crochet.
fourth, sorry, yeah, and then of course, the crochet as
And we do tie
identification
and dye
marks.
on our innerwear. So that's also another technique that we use. We use tie and dye uh, techniques.
Yeah, so very interesting, like how fashion and crafts collide. I haven't seen how an intimate wear line collides with fashion, with crafts in this seamless way.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting, Sonal. And I was actually going through an article. It just got published yesterday, where Apparel Insider, who do more industry-based stories, have actually reported that Shein and the women's undergarments that are being sold on its app have been tested for 3 times, going overboard, 3 times the carcinogenic legal limit that
Yeah.
the government places. And this is in EU, where the compliances are so strict. And it's very shocking. It's a big question mark on how we are consuming what we are consuming. And what do you think? How are things in India when one is looking at the limits on the use of chemicals? Is that something that one can trust, or should the consumer take it upon themselves to really start poking and questioning and asking and being alert about the choices that they make? I think that is something that's very important while we talk of not only the undergarments but also fashion, because of course undergarments become much more important because of the pH intensity and levels and the engagement that the innerwears have, but also fashion per se. So how are things here in India for you as a producer, and what is your advice to the consumers?
Unfortunately, India doesn't really have very high testing standards as EU has, right? That's a very unfortunate in India. But if you go to a standardized brand, they usually have a controlled, when you go to a local, when you buy from a local market or from a wholesale market, where there's no standardization, the risk of the dyes, the quality of dyes being used is extremely harmful. You get these small packets from your neighborhood store, and you can mix it with water and dye your dupatta and all of that. They are the
Right,
worst
right.
kind, really harmful. When we are talking about consumer, there are a couple of other things also that I would like to highlight for our viewers is manufacturing process, the number of chemicals that you are used, and the toxic pollution that is happening. The post-consumer pollution is way higher. It is a very, very shocking. It would be very shocking for everybody to know that it's not. Yes, of course, the industry is polluting, but the post-consumer, when we are using our garments and when we are washing them, that's
Washing
even
them.
higher. Yeah, it's even higher. The pollution level is even higher. Per person pollution level is even higher. Why I say that is because first I'll talk about the dyes which you brought up, and then I'll come to this point. So what happens is that because it's not regulated, if your neighborhood dyer or a laundry mat is dyeing a sari for you or coloring a sari for you, it is not standardized. It's not regulated. They're going to use these sachets or easily, loosely.
We've lost you, Sonal.
Hello?
Yeah, you're back. Yeah,
Okay.
it's okay.
So when they use these dyes, when you go to your neighborhood dyer, when you go to your neighborhood dyer, okay, I have stains in my dupatta or in my sari, please change the color of my sari, or please re-dye or recolor my sari. They use dyes which are extremely carcinogenic. There's no regulation over there. And after they've used it, they'll throw that water without being treated or mindfully, right? They'll just throw it in the nala directly, right? So it goes back into it goes into our own water tables without being
Right.
checked. When you go to a standard company, they have regulations that they have to follow. Most of these companies which are standardized, they are also exporting. So their regulations are still in place. So they will not have a separate for the domestic market and separate for the international market. It's in the same factory that everything is made. So the regulation is there overall, right? But if you go to any small brand or any small neighborhood dyer or anybody like that, they're going to use the most harmful dyes. So we have to be very careful of where we are getting what done from, right? So if we are talking in the fashion industry, that happens a lot. So we have to be careful about that. And also, there's not much regulations happening in India per se as per the dyes, but we should start demanding it from the brands that we are buying from, right? We should start. The more we are aware about it, and the more we question and we stop buying from them,
they will have to change. Every factory, every brand makes for its consumers. If the consumer is not consuming, they'll stop making it.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I highly doubt, that even the big brands, with SOSAT compliances are actually within the permissible limit. And there are studies, so in 2021, so this is Alden Wicker, who's written an entire book, which is called To Die For, and she substantiates many studies. There is an entire book by Shanna Swan called Countdown: How Our Modern World is Threatening Sperm Count, Altering Male and Female Reproductive Development,
Absolutely.
and Imperiling the Future of Human Race. And she qualifies that the garments that we are wearing, and also our underwears, our toys that we are consuming, the cosmetics that we are buying, they are all full of BPAs, which is, so even if you buy a Tupperware bottle, it says non-BPA. Now, these are all plasticiers that, one is concerned with, but there is a high amount of BPAs that are beyond permissible levels, sulfates that are beyond permissible levels. And, if one is interested, one can look into it. I'm just trying to understand that, as a consumer, what are the avenues that are available? Because, if one goes, there isn't much conversation on the health repercussions of this
Nobody's
kind of
talking about
consumption.
Yeah.
So even when you go to, so, when you go to a gynecologist as well, I don't think there is much advice that even a doctor is giving on the clothing that you're wearing or a sanitary napkin usage that you have. And that is quite concerning. So what is the step that a consumer or an aware citizen should take? Like how it's very interesting how Food Pharma is saying that you should check the ingredients, right, before you are consuming it. If it's palm oil, say no, the component and the constituency or the proportion of fruit in a juice should be something that you should be concerned with. I think likewise it applies to the garments as well.
Absolutely.
And there are studies.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there are studies also which are saying that. And should that be, do you think we can actually walk that pathway, and how can the awareness be built?
You know what, Suruchi? Unfortunately, in India, we don't know how to read labels on clothes. Food is still coming in now. There is some awareness. In clothes, we have no awareness. A lot of my consumers, when we share stories, I ask them, have you seen the label? What kind of underwear are you wearing? When we do our research, we ask them, what kind of underwear are you wearing? Is it 100% cotton underwear? They say, yeah, it's cotton. I said, please check your label. Please tell me. And they've never seen the label. They think it's 100% organic, but when they actually read it, they'll see that there is elastane or spandex mentioned on it. So most of us don't even know how to read our labels, right? We don't read. First of all, we don't read. And if we start reading is when we'll start knowing how to read them, right? So that's what we should do. We should read our labels. And when we'll read our labels, we'll know what we are consuming, what we are putting onto our bodies. Our clothes are our first environment. If our own environment is not good, how do we expect our external environment to be healthy and safe? Right? It's not going to be. If I have anything synthetic on my body, it is going to the landfill eventually, right? So that's later, but right now it's on my body. My body is being suffocated first. So we need to read our labels. In India, it's unfortunate that people don't need. A lot of garments even don't put labels, right? A lot of people who are selling their garments, they don't even put labels of what it actually is. I have seen very blatantly shopkeepers selling products as pure cotton. I have been in this industry for so long, so I can recognize what a pure cotton feels like and what it is and what it looks like, right? It's very hard for a consumer to do that. And it's very blatantly the shopkeepers will say, okay, it's 100% cotton. They'll sell it as 100. I know 100% for sure that there is at least a minimum of 10% of spandex in it. I can see it, I can feel it. And then when I see the label, it does mention that there is spandex. And then I show it to the shopkeeper that it says it's spandex. So then he'll say, but it feels like cotton. I said, that doesn't mean that it's 100% cotton. Please check your language, right? So please don't get fooled by stores. Most of the shopkeepers are selling products which have mixed materials in them, and they call them 100% natural and 100% cotton. Please be careful. Read the label. If it is not mentioned, if there is no label, don't buy it. Read the label. It will have mentioned. If it's not mentioned in the garment, don't buy it, because then they're trying to fool you. So please don't do that.
Thank you, Sonal. I think that's some of the good takeaways here. And we can take some questions. If people have questions, they can just put it in the comment section and I'll be able to see it. And Sonal, I have one question. When one goes through your website and one is talking about communication, or how one talks, right? The shopkeeper talking to you, for example, there is a way the brand also talks to its consumer. And on your website, when you say a certain thing, so how particular are you conveying the brand ethos or the positivity that a product carries through the website or through your campaigns? So are you also doing that, or are your consumers maybe more interested, or are they specifically buying you for those qualities?
They're buying only for those qualities. Yeah. Unfortunately, I have always been in the making side of the industry. So my communication level is not very high. So I'm still learning to do that. I am being the brand side for the first time, and branding is all about communication, right? Yeah, I'm still learning that. I'm bringing people on board to help us do that, to convey it. There is so much more that we do which doesn't come across on our website yet, right? So we are working on it, to how we can showcase that, what we stand for, what we believe in, and all of those things. There's so much more that we do. How we work with the artisans, how we work in the rural side of the community, how we work towards the environmental, how we give back to the community in terms of planting trees and all of that. We've not mentioned all of that. What a kind of impact that we've made by selling, or what kind of impact do we hope to make? We don't have those numbers yet in place. We are working on those, because that's the commitment that we have inside us, and we know we are committed to it, and that's the only reason that we are existing. Somebody tells me that, why don't you add spandex, it becomes more popular. I said, there are enough people doing that. I don't need to exist. I don't need to start in a way brand just with spandex when there is somebody already doing it. We exist
Right.
because there is nobody doing what we are doing. So we are very focused on that. We are also growing very organically. We are not pushing our products too much. We are growing absolutely, word of mouth. It's everything that we do is word of mouth, and our customers coming back to us. That's our biggest win, when our customers come back to us, and they bring back their family with them. Okay, this is for my mom, my sister. Everybody needs to use this. My kid, everybody needs to use this. So that's our win.
Yeah, and a very, very important point, which I did ask you, are the underwears compostable? So it's very important to understand that spandex is the lycra, right? Which gives you that elasticity. It gives elasticity,
Yeah.
in the material, in your gym wear, athleisure, and all of that. So that's very, very, and that actually is an obstruction to the compostability of the garment.
That's
so it is 100%, yeah. So if it is 100% cotton, Sonal, then is the underwear compostable? So does it close the loop?
100%.
Does it go back to the soil?
100%. It'll take 1 to 3 months to completely compost, biodegrade.
At the home composting facility?
It depends on the environment. It depends on the soil. It depends on where you're composting it, how you're composting it. So that's why 1 to 3 months. In the ideal situation where the land is absolutely very, rich, and you plant it deep enough, and you break it, cut it in smaller pieces. All these things. When you do all of that, then it'll take anywhere between 1 to 3 months pure cotton. And because there are no synthetic dyes in it, there's no leaching of dyes when you even biodegrade. That's why we say it's 100% biodegradable, because there's no synthetic dyes also. So everything kind of breaks down and goes right back into the nature where it came from. One thing I would mention is that we have elastic on our waistband, on our leg opening. So we tell people to cut those off and then dispose it. You can't so that elastic on the waist and in the leg opening, which holds the garment to your body, that's not yet. We are still learning. We are still trying to find a compostable elastin, which has not yet been discovered well enough. It's not a success yet. So yeah, so that's the only part which we are still researching on that.
Yeah, but that's extremely good to know. And Sonika is also here, who's a consumer of your products, so she's here as the audience. It's very interesting to also know, because the last session that we had with her, compostability was a big takeaway there as well. So even yeah. So great. I think there are many takeaways. Indeed, there is a textile researcher, Peter Borsey, who speaks about giving an ingredient list when you buy, so when a retailer or a supplier is selling, that ingredient list as to dyes used, carbon footprint, worker
Absolutely.
wages. So not only the environmental component, but also
Yeah.
the social component, and that should be covered. Indeed, microfibers also, where the microfibers that get disseminated after a single wash. And you very rightly said that, at the post-consumer level, there is immense water pollution that
Yeah.
results
The
in. So
microplastics, now microplastics have been found on the placenta as well as at the digestive system, right? So how is it reaching the placenta, right? It's because when you wear the garment, the spandex, it starts breaking down. And when it starts breaking down, it starts releasing microplastics. And when you're wearing them, the breakdown is continuously happening. So it goes into our body through that. When we wash them, the microplastics enter the water cycle. We also use a lot of water per cycle for our clothing,
true.
right? In our washing machine, when you're doing it in the washing machine. And the detergents that we are using, they are extremely harmful, right? So when we are talking about synthetic detergents, right, they are as bad as a synthetic dyes, right? There are bleaches that people use at home. There are these synthetic detergents that people use at home, like Surf Excel and all these Tides and all of that. When they're saying safedi ki chamak and all, that's basically bleach that they're talking about, right?
Right.
So I would recommend everybody to use non-toxic detergents, either home-based detergents or neutral detergents, something that would be used for maybe woolens and silks. Those are more neutral than the other detergents. So I would recommend users to use those for all their clothing.
So we have one question in the comment section which says, how will you then develop elasticity in cotton underwears?
So the fabric is designed in such a way that it stretches on four sides. So there is a natural elasticity through the making. Like, for example, I will tell you how you have your sweaters, right? When you're knitting them, it has that elasticity to it, right? So similarly, with the way we develop our fabrics, we knit it in such a way that it has that elasticity on four different sides. So there is a stretch to it naturally. The way the
Right.
fabric is made gives it an elasticity.
Great. So thank you, Sonal. So there are a lot of takeaways within this session. One being, of course, understand your material and the vibrations that are attached with it, the goodness that is attached with the material, in this case being cotton. Dyes, of course, the repercussions of it, and health-wise, the health repercussions that any kind of clothing consumption that we do, in terms of, it could be skin allergies, it could be hormonal disruptions, it could be microplastic ingestion, not only for us, but also the marine system while we wash. And of course, let's not forget the role of crafts and how innovation can play a role in also going ahead with any kind of production. And crafts, through these various facets of plantable dyes and techniques, can add a differentiation factor to the brand. So these are, so I think there is a great, the brand is dynamic, it's unique, Sonal, and congratulations for that.
Thank you so much.
And thank you. Great. And thank you so much to our audience who's joined us on this Saturday evening. And I feel there is a consistent coming and going, but I think a good ratio, good turnout overall.
Yeah, thank you, Surucchi. Thank you, everybody at Creative Dignity. Thank you for having me over. And I would say craft is a very, very healthy way of living. When you're using craft as earthenware, woodware, wooden products. These are all, when you're using crafts in its natural form, that's what we should have around us. So for me, craft is healthy. And that's why craft becomes a part of our healthy clothing that we are trying to bring to our customers. So, yeah.
And the website is maayu.com, right?
In. MAAYU.in. So Maayu means Ma and You, mother and child. That's
wonderful.
what Maayu is.
Such a good note to start with and to end with. Thank you, Sonal.
Thank you, Surucchi. Thank you, Creative Dignity. Bye bye. Thanks. Thank you, viewers. Bye bye.